It's officially NFL draft week. Everyone's getting ready for the big day. We've got to find prospects. All the prospect fits that you need are coming at you in a few seconds with my great friend, Luke Inman. Luke underscore Spinman NFL is in the house today for the Go Get Your Guys segment. We are going to break down positional fits for the Vikings and get you ready for Thursday's first round. Luke, is it Christmas morning yet?
I mean, we're so close, man. I stare up at my ceiling every night. I can't even fall asleep. That's how excited I am. I know you've done a ton of work. You've done a lot of research, as well as myself. Check a lot of it out on zonecoverage.com, of course. Me and Sam Ekstrom just did a big draft guide. But yeah, man, we're getting so close. I can't believe it. What, 3 days away? This is just nuts.
I just can't believe how fast it's gone. Even with all this COVID-19 pandemic stuff going on, virtual draft, we don't know what's going to happen with that. It came and just arrived so quickly.
Yeah, it's goofy because everything, and I mean everything, got either canceled, postponed, or pushed back, except the draft. So certainly leading up to this last month, I still was a little hesitant. I thought this may get pushed back to some degree, or how are they going to do this logistically? It's too bad because guys like you and I do so much work on draft weekend. We wouldn't be able to go to Vegas anyways, but hosting the draft in Las Vegas just sounds like the ultimate trip and dream weekend for a guy like you and me if we could ever make it. But obviously, like you said, I don't know how they're going to do it. Virtual, what Goodell's going to be in his basement, I guess, and who kind of gets screwed or job is the 10 or 15 players that would have been able to walk out on the stage, shake Goodell's hand, and have that moment. They kind of get robbed of that moment a little bit, but it's still here, man. A couple days away, like you said, and I'm excited to break down some of these names that you picked out for us.
We've got the Go Get Your Guys list, and if you follow us on Twitter, you know it's all about GGYGs, and we're bringing you those guys today that we want on draft day. And we're going to start with the defensive tackles, Luke.
Yeah.
Javon Kinlaw, one of my favorite prospects in the whole draft. I have him ranked over Derek Brown.
Ooh, wow.
This guy is a freak. 3-technique defensive tackle, create a player, length, power, explosiveness. Let's roll the video and go through some of the things that we like about Javon Kinlaw.
Well, the explosiveness right away is just what pops off the tape. How explosive a guy that big can be. He manhandles. Check this out against Alabama. He just manhandles some big interior offensive linemen. And what I love the most, I know you didn't get to go down to the Senior Bowl, but I know I was texting you that entire weekend just how real of a deal Javon Kinlaw was. You talk about create a player, the size and the physicality. That's you're right. I mean, he checks all those boxes. But when I heard him speak, both at the player interviews and at the Matt Nagy press conference, you can just tell this guy plays with a chip on his shoulder, but he's just got, for being such a, we forget how young these guys are sometimes. Yeah. 20, 21, 22. He was just so mature and just had every single thing to say was just right on par with just a guy that, it's easy for us to say, oh, this GM should have picked this guy because he ran a better 4.40. Well, remember, these GMs got their job on the line. They want to pick good character guys as well. And Kinlaw certainly fits the bill. Don't have him higher than Derek Brown, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, but I like your take. He's certainly a lot closer than I think people give him credit for. I was looking at the Indianapolis Colts at pick 13. They ended up trading their pick for another defensive tackle, DeForest Buckner.
Don't say the 49ers, Luke. Don't say it.
Now I'm just sitting there thinking the Niners have a now hole with Buckner gone, and that would be just absolute worst case scenario. You want this guy as a Viking fan in the AFC, wherever and however you can do that. Wouldn't be surprised if he went top 10, end of round top 10, maybe the Jaguars at 9. I think he's that good, but ultimately I think he goes in that top 15 range somewhere.
Well, can you imagine the 49ers if they pull the trigger on that with
Oh,
Armstead, DJ Jones, Nick
Bosa.
Bosa, Javon
Oh,
Kinlaw? That defensive line would be lethal. Vikings wise, is this a guy that you would trade up for, Luke? If he's
I,
within 7 to 8 picks of 22 and you've got real estate, would you go up and get this guy? Because I would. I want to solidify that three-tech defensive tackle position.
oh my God. You saw shades of it, what this Mike Zimmer defense can do with a true nose, who's now Michael Pierce, was Linval Joseph, and then who was Sharif Floyd. You saw the flashes, how good this defense can be with a great nose and a great three tech. And it certainly depends on where he ends up. What are we trading up to 17, 18, 19? I'm on board. I think he's that good. And I've kind of came on the show last week and said, I think it's time Mike Zimmer gets to use some of those picks on offense. He's used these picks so many on defense, but Kinlaw is a guy that is just so good. He's just made for the NFL. You feel really good as a GM and as a coach, the player he is on and off the field. Certainly with all the extra ammo they have, they got an extra fourth next year. They got an extra third this year, handful of sevenths. Certainly you don't want to give away a king's ransom, especially in a quote unquote mini rebuild year with all the positions the Vikes got to fill. But Kinlaw's just that good. I certainly think if he gets down to 16, 17, 18, you're making calls. And, you would know just as much as that. What do you think that would cost to go from 22 to, let's say, 18? So moving up 4 spots, probably an extra third and an extra maybe third next year, 2/3, or what do you think?
I would say that's a fair value with thinking about how the extra comp pick that they have, they could
Right.
move that in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to move up, but what happens on draft night if a tackle falls down the board? You've got the big four. Do you want to leap up and take that extra one and potentially shop that? There's
Right.
so many options to move up to 9, maybe. We'll see what happens, but
Hey,
definitely an option.
the Cleveland Browns have been rumored a lot to want to move back.
Good
Whether it's for, it sounds like they're in love with Ezra Cleveland, but you can't take him despite the great combine at pick 10. Maybe they trade back. And maybe the Vikings again with Kevin Stefanski there, and they've already grabbed a ton of former Viking players. Maybe there's a little bit of connection, a little bit of transparency between the two teams. I wouldn't be surprised in that. Again, quote unquote mini rebuild year. I want to be able to get as many extra picks as he can, just because he's got such a great pedigree. But he's never been afraid to go get his guys. And that means moving up to go get a Teddy Bridgewater, moving up to go get Cordell Patterson, moving up to go get Dalvin Cook in the second round. I don't want to give up too much, but if a guy like Kinlaw's sitting there, you move up with the first, and then you and I have talked about you move back with that pick 25, the second first round pick, and just try to get an extra little bit of ammo.
Yes, there's always possibilities to move back and up all over the board, especially with the ammo they have. But let's say they stay put, Luke, decide we want to address the 3 technique defensive tackle position. Another option that I really like is Justin Matabuk from Texas A&M, and how they used him there more as a stunting, athletic 3 technique. He has the versatility to play a couple alignments, but he projects best as a 3 technique. What do you think about him working with Andre Patterson in the Viking system?
I love it. I love it. There's a second tier of guys. I fell in love with Novelli Gallimore from Oklahoma. Great penetrating 3 tech. This guy is right in the mix there. Ross Blacklock from TCU seems to be in that value. This guy's just explosive, though. He's so explosive. He's a guy that I could see even moving to a nose tackle in pass rushing situations. And I just love that idea to be able to do that. Certainly a 3 tech and maybe even a base end. There's a ton of versatility there. He can play a bunch of different fronts, which remember, with our new, defensive / coordinator, the guy we got from the Packers. I'm blanking on his name.
Capers.
Dom Capers. You want guys with versatility that can move all over. This guy stacks and sheds. He's really explosive, though, and I love that. He's a guy more you're looking at pick 58 if he was still there. But any one of those, I'm with you. It's time to get that 3-tech position squared away. Here's my only issue here is you have so many needs. Obviously, the secondary is completely gone. You want 1 or 2 offensive linemen. You want 1 or 2 wide receivers. You know the needs, but how early can you use one of these second-round or third-round picks on defensive tackle, knowing that there is some guys on the Viking depth chart that showed and flashed a lot? And I'm not talking about just Jaleel Johnson or Jalen Holmes. I'm talking about Armin Watts from Arkansas, who's very young still. I think he was 21 when we drafted him last year. And Hercules Mataafa flashed quite a bit as well. So you've got guys in that defensive line room there that can play that 3-tech position. I really like Mataafa a lot. Very explosive. I'm just not sure with the Vikings position where they're at, how early they can use one of these picks. Now, again, if Kinlaw's there, he's just a no-brainer. He's just that good. Yeah. But I think value comes into mind for sure at pick 58. You got to think about it.
When you see Justin Mataafa, one of the things that I love about him is how he thrives off the stunt game and the way the Vikings love to use those sub packages and really be creative with their interior guys. You get that flexibility and versatility to play multiple different alignments in the defense, and Zim naturally attracts to those kind of guys.
Oh, no doubt. You just get these guys in the room with Andre Patterson. What a pedigree both these guys have, churning out some raw talent and turning them into bona fide legitimate players in the league, whether that's a Stephen Weatherly or obviously Danielle Hunter's an easy one. And now again, flashing with Hercules Mataafa and Armin Watts. It's exciting. You just want to get these raw, great explosive physical guys though in that Andre Patterson room, and he's going to do a lot with it. So I like that. Mataafa for sure. There's about 3 or 4 guys I like there. Novelli Gallimore, Blacklock, Mataafa would be outstanding. Again, I just don't know how early you can use some of these picks, and knowing there's just so many other needs, which we'll get into.
The offensive line, Luke, is obviously one of the big needs that they have to fill in the draft. I see the tiers. You got your 4 guys.
Yep.
Becton, Thomas, Wirfs, Wills, all those guys. What about Josh Jones? Where does he fit into the tier? I view him as between tier 1 and 2, right in the middle. I think he's more inconsistent than raw. What do you take? What's your take on him?
Yeah, he looked great at the Senior Bowl. Super mobile, super efficient with his movement steps. And again, as you're going to see here, he was going up against some serious talent like Strobridge from North Carolina who ripped it up, Josh Uche from Michigan who ripped it up, and then a Javon Kinlaw too. And he held his own. I'm certainly with you, though, when you start to look about value. The Vikings need to add 1, if not 2 offensive linemen early. It's just time to do that. And, he's outside of the top 4, the elite top 4. And I'm with you. He's probably a little bit higher on the board than Lucas Niang from TCU and Matt Pert and some other guys, Ben Barch. So you kind of feel a little gypped because you're not getting a tier 1 offensive tackle. But this guy's so athletic and mobile. I just feel like he fits what Gary Kubiak's going to want to do. And I talked about last time we came on last week that sometimes we put a little bit too much stock and they have to be super athletic to fit Kubiak's team. They still run a lot of power. But Josh Jones, you're talking about a 4-year starter, started over 50 games, great pedigree again, and very athletic. I like him a lot. Shouldn't be surprised. Nobody should be surprised if he was the pick at 22 or 25.
Well, like we're seeing in the clips here, being able to move out in space, block well on the perimeter, you got to have that trait to fit in this zone blocking scheme. You look at what Brian O'Neill does when he's pulling outside and they're able to move him around, and the counter game even is part of the Vikings offense and the power side of it that you can see working with someone like Josh Jones. The multiplicity of blocking schemes that the Vikings like to use, Josh Jones certainly fits the mold of a player that they like, and he's less raw than Ezra Cleveland or Austin Jackson or people like that you mentioned. Josh Jones got better over the course of the season. He looked good at the Senior Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I would not hesitate pulling the trigger on Josh Jones.
Not at all. No, yeah, and you have that position flexibility too, where Riley Reef was a hell of a guard at Iowa. He can play it, and it's a little risky just throwing a rookie left tackle out there to protect a pure pocket guy like Kirk Cousins. But I certainly think, again, if you miss out on the top 4, it doesn't matter. You still have to go add some talent. I think Brian O'Neill. Personally, I didn't think he looked great at the Senior Bowl, and he's been one of my biggest surprises of the last few years of the Spielman and Zimmer era. He's been outstanding. I mean, he's only given up less than a handful of sacks. Josh Jones, I like what you said, a lot less raw than people think. 4-year starter at Houston and has started well over 45, nearly 50 games. The guy's got quite the resume, and he fits that athletic build. No, he's not in the top tier with Tristan Wirfs and et cetera, but you're still getting a really good offensive lineman that you throw out there at left tackle. You'll have some growing pains, but then think about the foundation now you have. Bradbury, a first-round pick. They really apparently like Drew Samia, or they're going to add another one later on. Brian O'Neill's been outstanding. Riley Reif can be a great guard for the next 3-4 years as he gets a little older and grooms the Josh Jones, the left tackle. I think now you finally feel good about your offensive line and having a top 10 potential on your offensive line. It's been a while.
And it's all about the offensive lineman that you feel like you can develop to the next level. And Josh Jones has not reached that peak. He's going to get better under Rick Dennison. If you pick him and you invest, it's not going to be a complete developmental project like other guys, Ezra Cleveland's, Austin Jackson's. I believe you could start Josh Jones day one. There'd be some growing pains, but it'd be a lot like if they would have started maybe Brian O'Neill on day one. He was, in my book, a lot less raw than people really, gave him credit for during the process. They kind of labeled him that way, but he turned out to be more inconsistent and made an impact later on in that first season.
Yeah. Last thing on Jones is just when you look at the value and where the Vikes are at, 22, 25. Listen, a big name always falls in the late teens, whether it's Randy Moss, Percy Harvin, Derwin James, you name it. I think sitting at 22, they're just on the outskirts. We talked about Javon Kinlaw, maybe. They're just on the outskirts. I don't think a big name is going to fall in the laps of 22. They'll probably have to move up a few spots. So knowing that, I don't think that's what Spielman wants to do. You start to get comfortable with the idea of taking Josh Jones at 22 or 25. Maybe it's not the glitzy, glamoury pick you're hoping for, but again, when you got a pure pocket passer like Kirk Cousins who needs protection, and then what you want to do, you want to build your team around winning in the trenches and running the football. Maybe the blueprint in the NFL is you got to be a pass-happy team. Well, that's not what Kubiak and Zimmer want to do. So you got to make sure you have the talent to go do so. Josh Klein was a huge surprise cut. Still trying to figure that one out because they didn't save a ton of money, maybe only $1 million, but that tells me they're probably really confident in either Oli Udoh or Drew Samia. Doesn't matter. You still got to add that bookend left tackle. Josh Jones can be that guy for the next 8-10 years.
What do you think about the developmental tier, Luke? The next fit spot of that, the next tier, Austin Jackson stands out to me as someone who you could invest in, might not give you results instantly, but the upside with the athleticism, the agility is the big thing that I noticed with him in the pass sets. He has the chance to turn into a really solid left tackle in the NFL. What do you think of Austin Jackson from USC?
Yeah, I like that you got the Iowa tape up here because he's going against A.J. Epinesa, another guy who should go in the top 25 picks. And he had, out of all the film I watched of offensive linemen, just straight up, he had some of the best pass protection looks that I've seen of the entire class. And that's saying a lot with the top tier that we talked about, Andrew Thomas, Wirfs, Becton, you name it. He's got some of and flashes some of the best pass protection you will find ultra athletic. And again, we sometimes again put maybe too much stock into that, but I'm telling you, this guy would be a dream. Sync that up with Gary Kubiak's zone type of scheme where you can move out in space and go attack that second tier of linebackers. This guy has got all those goods. He's a little bit more of a wild card if you're going to talk about throwing a rookie out at left tackle than Josh Jones. I'd feel better about year one, Josh Jones. But if you're talking about years 3, 4, and 5, I think he's got a higher ceiling for sure. Wouldn't be shocked if he ended up going late round 1. And if that's the case, then maybe you just maybe you just go get your guys. You take them at 25. You're not going to feel like you're getting a ton of value. You're going to feel like you're reaching a little bit. But if they take him at 25, that tells you how high his upside is and how much the Vikings would love him. I think the dream is having one of those second-tier guys fall to you at pick 58. It just doesn't seem like Austin Jackson or Josh Jones are going to be there. That's too far for them.
And if there's a scenario where you could move back from 25 and right into the sweet spot for Austin Jackson, if you want to invest in him, the pass protection sets, like you said, Luke, are really what stand out. Being able to beat the DN to a spot, anchor, and he has the agility to mirror defensive ends so well. I'm higher on Austin Jackson in the developmental tier than most people are. Everyone's talking about Ezra Cleveland, but I'd much rather have Austin Jackson in my developmental system than Ezra Cleveland. At this point, I'm not saying Ezra Cleveland can't develop into a really good offensive lineman. He has a lot of testing metrics that are similar to Brian O'Neill, 75% comparable when you look at the athletic testing metrics. But Austin Jackson's film shows a lot of flashes that I like.
I like that you brought up maybe moving back because you're not going to feel like you're getting great value at 25. But, he goes in the next 10, 15 picks. It's almost cemented. He's going to go from that 25 to 40, 45 range. So when you're talking about moving back from 25, there's a couple wild card teams that you got to worry about. The Dolphins at 26, they have the Texans pick. Again, they traded Laremy Tunsil for that pick. They're a wild card. They need everything. I don't think they go offensive line at that point, but it's certainly an option. The Seahawks at 27, the next pick, worry me quite a bit. They could go a plethora of ways. We'll see what happens with Jadeveon Clowney if he ends up signing back with the Seahawks. And then that'll make offensive line probably their biggest priority or need. The Ravens, a wild card. I think they're set, but the Titans just got rid of Jack Conklin, and that also worries me a little bit. Now, again, Ezra Cleveland or some other guys, maybe teams fall in love with maybe one of those names, but I just don't think Austin Jackson is going to be there at pick 58 by no means. No. So you're going to have to trade down to feel like you got good value, but there's a couple teams that could come in and snake you a little bit. Dolphins, Seahawks, Titans, and don't forget about the Packers too. So you just got to be a little wary of that. How far can you really move down?
And again, that's dependent upon how the board shakes out. The run of receiver, how many quarterbacks are taken in round 1, what happens with the tackles. There's so many variables that really are decided on draft night because you got to see how everything shakes out. And by the time you
got to be fluid. You got to be Spielman's fluid, man. He's in there. You got to be ready to see how that board shakes out. Listen, I just talked about the Dolphins maybe snaking it. Dolphins could draft their tackle at 18, and then you go, well, you don't need to worry about it. So you're right. You got to be fluid. You gotta be ready to just roll with the punches. And this is why I love Spielman and the front office. They go through plan A, B, C, D, and all the way down to Z, and they are prepared for any and every option that falls their way. And they know, obviously, they know what other teams are targeting or looking for. So I'm very confident. Vikings fans should be very confident and feel good going into the draft weekend with all these picks, just letting Spielman do his thing because he's been great.
I totally agree. And even if they don't go with the tackle, is there a draft night trade? Trent Williams, Joe Thuney? Do they take one of their extra picks and move that to get a veteran? If that's the case, Luke, what do you think about guard Cesar Ruiz from Michigan? Played center for the Wolverines, will play guard at the next level, possibly could do both. I love Cesar Ruiz specifically in pass protection. He might be the most polished pass protector in the interior of the whole offensive line class.
And he's young. I mean, he's so young. I think he might be the youngest offensive lineman in the class, if not interior offensive lineman. So tons to work with there. You're right. The pass protection's awesome, and it's only going to get better as he gets more NFL strength. I look at all these big names that come out of Michigan, and you wonder how come Michigan was just not that good with Harbaugh, because they pumped some serious NFL talent the last few years. Ruiz being another one of those guys. A few years ago, Travis Frederick was a wild card. Nobody expected him to go at the end of round one when the Cowboys traded back. And he's been rock solid. Frederick's been one of the better centers in the league. Ruiz seems to me like a guy that could be a wild card, somewhat surprise a few people to go at the end of round one. He should go in those top 40 picks, though, again, just with his age, how young he is, and how polished he already looked against a lot of Big Ten play. I really like him a lot. The only thing I wish in a perfect world, House, is that Bradbury's not moving anywhere. He's your center. You want to draft a true guard, it feels like, first and foremost. But there's no Quentin Nelsons in this draft. They're just not.
No.
And it seems like a lot of the best interior offensive linemen happen to be centers. Great to have that position flexibility if Bradbury goes down. But I think there's going to be a little transition like Pat Elflein. There's going to be a little transition. I want a guy who's just played guard for the past 4 years, but doesn't seem like you're going to get that in this draft. Ruiz, like Austin Jackson, I think you try to trade down from 25 and then you punch it. But again, solidify that offensive line. That would feel good.
Well, not only that, but he has a lot of upside still in the ground game. But you see those movement skills, being able to get to the second level. The blocking technique will continue to progress. He'd fit the zone scheme, but the pass protection is an area I didn't like last season. They're getting pushed in the middle of that pocket. Kirk didn't have time to step up and move in the pocket. That's an area they have to address, and I would not be upset at all if they made a trade for a veteran offensive tackle or guard. It makes more sense if it's Trent Williams, then you can go Cesar Ruiz at guard. But are you willing to invest draft capital, first-round picks 2 years in a row, to center guard combo players?
Analytics may say that's a horrible idea. Interior offensive line just doesn't matter. They're not valued as much. You got to get premium positions, left tackle, wide out corner, quarterback. But the way the Vikings are built, not all other 31 teams, the way the Vikings are built, they need a legitimate offensive line. And it's been so long, probably since Brett Favre in 2009 with Phil Loadholt, Hutchinson, John Sullivan, that the Vikings have had a top 10 offensive line. But in this system with Kubiak, if you can get talent in there, this team will thrive. They'll be competitive every single week. They'll be a nightmare to go up against. They'll win in the trenches. And Ruiz, you're right. Let Kubiak do his thing with run developmental. I mean, He's great on just plugging athletic guys in there, and he will show you how to be a zone blocker, but you can't teach the pass blocking. That's what we've seen with Pat Elflein, just hasn't clicked. He's been fine in the run game, but he can't protect the passer against some of these bigger guys. Knowing Ruiz already has and flashes a lot of that ability, I really like his potential. Don't love him at 25. But if you can get some value and move back a little bit, I certainly love that. Listen, the Vikings went out after the Saints game. Hell of a game. We'll always remember it. But they just got bodied in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
And it's what is fresh in everybody's mind. So I think, I don't care what people say about interior offensive line or a right tackle. I think it's time for this team to solidify that, knowing that if you want to beat the best, like the Niners, you're going to have the capable offensive line to go against Bosa and Armstead and all the names you just mentioned. And there's no way they can do it with the names that are on this team right now. There's just no way they can do it. I like you brought up Trent Williams. Seems to be another quiet rumor that's heating up a little bit. He's out in Washington. He's gone. Washington's just trying to get as much draft capital as they can. If you somehow steal him for a third-round pick, I'd even be happy knowing how late their second-round pick is at 58. I'd be happy with pick 58. He is that good. He should have some fresh legs. He hasn't played in a year.
No.
And I just think that would be an ideal scenario to get him for a later draft pick. And we talked about Cleveland. I already mentioned that, pick 10. if Anthony Harris is going to get moved somewhere on draft week, and it seems like Cleveland would make a lot of sense, and if you move him, you're probably not going to get pick 10, but you should get an early second-round pick from them. He's that good too. And that opens up a whole new bevy of options. Now, if you have Cleveland's second-round pick, maybe that's where you can target Austin Jackson or Cesar Ruiz.
Well, and that's the thing. Are the Vikings willing to budge if Cleveland's only willing to give you a third-round pick for Anthony Harris? Are you willing to take that value?
That's tough, because if it's truly mini rebuild year, then get as much draft capital as you can. Let's just do it all in one big swoop. You got 2/3 that would give you a third rounder. I think that it's one of those where at the end of the day, Anthony Harris is one of the best safeties in the league. He won't play on this franchise tag. They're either going to keep him and re-sign him or restructure him, or they're going to move him. I think it's been really fun to watch Zimmer and Jerry Gray develop a UDFA, guy went undrafted, into one of the top 3 center fielding safeties in the league. His run support's been outstanding. I certainly think, moving him, it creates another whole house. There's no safeties on this team. Sendejo's gone. Marcus Epps got plucked by the Eagles last year. And obviously Jaron Kearse went to Detroit. So if you can get a second rounder, I'm fine with it, knowing what Spielman could do with the second rounder. But you also just created another hole at safety. So end of the day, I think you just try to keep him. I think he's that good.
What do you think about options later in the draft? I got one of my guys. Go get your guys. Kyle Murphy from Rhode Island, one of my favorite prospects out of the FCS. Played left tackle at Rhode Island, but will kick inside at the next level. Mean streak, Luke. Watch some of these clips, how he just absolutely mows people over to the whistle.
Look at that.
And he has quick feet. Really great in pass protection. I like how he is on the move, too, in the running game. He still has work to go there. But other than that, being able to play the tackle position, he doesn't have the length maybe in the NFL to do that, but he has experience at center. He could go between center and guard. Fits the athletic profile of what they're looking for at the guard position. Got to be able to, make that jump to the next level in terms of competition and get stronger. But he's someone that you could invest in the future.
I'm glad you brought this dude up. I love him. I mean, you see the mean streak on the tape. Sure, that's lower level competition, but he dominates. When somebody's dominating that lower tier competition, it really makes you think, like a Ben Barch or an Ali Marpet. These guys can hang with the big boys in the NFL. I think the big thing here is he's maybe a little bit more of a project for sure, but they need bodies, man. They need developmental projects outside of Oli Udoh and Drew Samia. I love the versatility, first of all. Left tackle, guard, center, probably interior on the offensive line in the NFL. But the fact that he's got a lot of reps says a lot. I love the fact that he started as a true freshman as well. That speaks volumes when a 18 or 19-year-old can come in and be starting at such an important position at left tackle for your football team. I'm glad you brought it up. True freshman starter, ends up being a captain later on, All-American first team, All-CAA honors. But I love the versatility. I love the potential. And I think because of his small school label, you should be able – what do you think? I think you can grab him in the 5th, 6th round. I don't know what his projection is going to be, but this is why I want to give Spielman as many day 3 picks as he can to take some lotto picks, some scratch-offs, if you will, and just get him as many lotto picks as you can. That's a guy that 1 in every 2 or 3 times you're going to hit on, and he's going to be a really good player.
And that's the thing you have to invest in those later rounds. You saw the benefit of it last year, picking Oli Udoh in the 6th round, someone who really emerged during the draft process as a small school guy. Do it again. Keep building this up so that you have a depth chart moving into the future, that you can start inserting guys into larger roles and not have to spend as much money on the offensive line. Create a development or minor league system, in a sense, for offensive line play. That's what I want to see from the Vikings.
Yeah, and that means putting 2 or 3 offensive linemen on the practice squad. Fine, so be it. I'm at that point. I think a lot of fans are. They're sick of just trying to rebuild this offensive line. I know there's a lot of other needs. I get that. But don't you think it's time for Mike Zimmer to do and work his magic later in the draft? Use a lot of draft capital and free agent money on the offense, specifically the offensive line. It's been, like I said, it's been 10 years. I'm not asking for a top 3 offensive line. I just want a capable top 10 offensive line. And they've added some pieces. They're not as far away as maybe it seems with Brian O'Neill and Bradbury, and maybe Drew Samir Oliudo ends up hitting. But you're going to have to use some early picks this year on some offensive linemen. I'm glad you brought him up.
Luke, the Vikings traded Stephon Diggs, got a first-round pick, need to find the replacement. And with the Vikings playing so much 12 personnel, you got 2 tight ends on the field at such a high frequency, you just need someone to complement Adam Thielen that possibly has versatility to move inside and out, play out of the slot, fill that type of role that Stephon Diggs did. I've been looking at the wide receiver prospects. This class is historic. It's deep, filled with tons of players who are going to make an immediate impact. One of my favorites, Baylor's Denzel Mims.
Oh,
and you look at the spider chart, Luke. Freak. Senior Bowl, tore it up. Go get your guys.
Wow.
More of a big body target, power forward in the red zone, going up for a rebound. I pulled out one of my favorite clips from the Senior Bowl. These red zone vertical releases, Luke, are textbook. Made really great catches where he had to display body control, flash his hands at the last second. Still has room to grow as a route runner, but that upside, that freaky ability.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I wish, can you rewind that and play that fade route again? Because I wish the resolution on these are a little bit better, because I am literally in the background videotaping this guy going up and getting it right about there. It's blurry, but I am right there. I got to see this guy up close and personal make these catches constantly over and over and over again. And, you know, I'm not going to lie. I've been burned on Big 12 receivers quite a bit. Josh Doxson, I fell in love with. Corey Coleman, other people love, but ultra productive and speedster. You know, Big 12, the problem is they play a lot of soft defenses and soft cornerbacks. They really do.
Impressed.
Yeah, it's tough. But I think every player is different. You can't scout the logo. You can't scout the conference. I think this guy is going to change the trend there, and I think he's going to put the Big 12 wideouts back on the map. This guy is so big, over 220 pounds, but he's so fast. He ran, what, a 4.37, a 4.38, sub 440. You see the window, the catch radius, they call it. You want guys that are called mismatches, that if you're going to put 9 guys in the box to stop Dalvin Cook, that's fine. But you have to have a guy who can win one-on-one matchups like that. Look at these. I mean, it's just, granted, this is just Senior Bowl practice, but he made these catches at Baylor a lot. And nobody has checked all the boxes along the way, talking about Pro Day, Senior Bowl, Combine, better than Denzel Mims. He's probably pushed his draft stock high enough where you could talk about him at pick 22 or 25. I think he's been that good. And what's nice here, House, is we clearly need wide receiver depth, but I don't think you need a wide receiver 1, because Adam Thielen can be a wide receiver 1, in my opinion. But if you want to move Thielen inside a lot, where he's been great in the slot, you still need a boundary type of big body guy. This guy, I think, can be that guy. You don't want to put too much draft stock into the pre-draft process, the combine. You got to go watch the tape. But this guy was outstanding, man. And I think, yes, you're right, it's a loaded class. But the fact that you have Thielen take some pressure off him to be a wide receiver 1, I think he would be a great wide receiver 2 in this system, in this offense.
So much untapped potential, too. You haven't really witnessed all of the upside that this guy has. The spider charts indicate that the athleticism he possesses is something that can be developed at the next level. And the production, you already saw that at Baylor, how well he produced during his senior season. I want to see this guy in a developmental system where he can come in and complement a guy out on the perimeter. He would be a nice fit with Adam Thielen right away. And then you invest in a slot receiver later in the draft. I like a lot of options that are available later on with guys like John Hightower, people like that. You can definitely find a lot of options. I know you like Jennings from Tennessee.
Love him. Yep.
There's so many options. Tyler Johnson's another slot guy.
Mm-hmm.
So many players in those mid-round ranges that can complement Denzel Mims if you want to go that direction. But what happens if the Vikings wait and they decide, all right, we don't want to invest in a receiver this early. It's not as high of a priority in our system. Why don't we just wait it out, see how the board plays out? You've got a lot of receivers in this class that have high grades. I have 12 with round 1 or 2 grades on my big board.
Mm-hmm.
Luke, what do you think about Van Jefferson from Florida, one of the best route runners, and he tore up the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I hate when he gets brought up because I just sound so redundant. He's maybe the best route runner, at least top 3 route runners in this draft. Certainly Jerry Jeudy's the best route runner. We know that. And Justin Jefferson's pretty damn good. But Van Jefferson, man, think about what the knocks are. So the route running is outstanding. It's on another level. And that tells me he can come in to the NFL and be a productive rookie right away as a wide receiver 2. Maybe his ceiling will never be wide receiver 1, and that's fine because you have Adam Thielen, but you still need guys when you spread them out 3, 4, 5 wide. You need guys who can come in and win a one-on-one matchup. Look at this. This tape's against LSU.
Stingley.
This tape's against Stingley. This is against Kristen Fulton, who's going to go in the top 20 picks as a cornerback. Virginia, if this is his 2018, this is against Bryce Hall, who should go in the top 50 picks. He dominated. I mean, dominated as when I mean he got open. Whether the ball got to him or not, he got open. He was there almost every single time there was some one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl. So he's going up against guys he's going to play in the NFL. Darnay Holmes, UCLA, Troy Pride, Notre Dame. There was plenty of Dane Jackson, Pitt. All those guys are going to go in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. He's going to match up against those guys. And I don't know how you're not confident when you draft a guy like this. And again, the ceiling, he'll never be a wide receiver 1. He's not a Julio. He's not maybe even a Diggs. But I think with Thielen on the roster, you just want a wide receiver 2. And I think this guy's got a high ceiling at wide receiver 2. Don't remember his 40 time. Don't think he was a blazer. But again, when the route running's that good, I really don't think it matters. He's a guy that I had mid-3rd round earlier in the process. I just don't see how he gets out of the 2nd round. Maybe late 2nd round, but if he's there at 58, I think you think long and hard about it.
4.43 40-yard dash.
I mean,
6'1", 202. Sign me up. I love the route running, Luke. This specific route stood out to me. Now, what I want you to watch is how he keeps his head still, and he turns his head slightly like this is going to be a vertical release fade. But watch how he slams on that break foot, drives. DB Stingley is just moving all the way on this fade. But then
he's selling that fade beautifully, man. And I'm glad you slowed that down because it gives people a taste of just how articulate he is off the line of scrimmage. This is what I'm worried about with the Denzel Mims. Is he have a good release when he plays these press covers? Are they going to swallow him up at the line of scrimmage? His release into his route is one of the best of the class. So when you have that, it doesn't matter who the cornerback is. You have a chance at getting yourself open, getting your quarterback an open target. I really, really like him a lot. It'll be interesting just to see how high he goes because I just don't know. I think heading into the pre-draft process, again, he was a mid to late 3rd round pick. I think as good as I really like him because his ceiling isn't super high like Mims, I don't think a team's going to draft him in the top 40 picks, top 45 picks. I just don't. But he's going to be a great addition for whatever team drafts him. Late 2nd, early 3rd round, I think, is when you look at Van Jefferson.
He's this year's Terry McLaurin because he's polished, going to come in and contribute away, make an impact. Everyone will want him on their fantasy team.
Yeah,
he's that kind of guy, immediate impact, would complement Thielen extremely well, a detailed route runner that can play both inside and out. I believe he can do both. Some people don't think so, but that route running, I want it on my team. detail is my thing when I'm watching receivers, and he definitely has that. What about Michael Pittman from USC? I know you're a huge fan of Michael Pittman, and a team's going to get really good value because he's going to slide down boards in this historic draft class.
Yeah, he is. I mean, this is a guy that if you're talking about just being a bully when the ball is in the air, this guy is some of the best go up and get it, ball tracking, pluck that ball out of the air that you can find in the draft, period. Now, he's 6'4.5". He's a big body dude. He ran a 4.52, which for that size is not slow. 4.52 is not slow for that size. He's going to get pushed down because there's just so many names clumped together. Justin Jefferson, Mims, Jalen Reagor, they all got put together. He may be just on the outskirts of that kind of tier, but I think because what he brings to the table, his ceiling, because he's so good when the ball's in the air, beating one-on-one coverage, I think he can be a wide receiver one someday. And if you can be a wide receiver one, if teams look at you like you can win these matchups deep downfield, I think maybe he's a surprise to go in round one, despite how many wideouts there are. Yeah, go get your guys. I think I'm looking at even as high as the late teens circling the Las Vegas Raiders, because don't forget, John Gruden coached his dad, and there's something about having NFL genes that you cannot put a price on.
Give me some Gruden.
I'll tell you what, man. You look at Michael Pittman, man. He's a guy. Hey, go get your dad on the phone, man, because this is a guy that I want on my football team, man. Look at that. What are you playing in your earbuds there? Little AC/DC, huh? Hey, this guy can play, man. This guy can play. Seriously, Gruden at 19, it would shock the world. But at pick 19, Mike Mayock loves the NFL genes. Gruden loves the NFL genes. By the way, his character off the field is pristine. It is perfect and flawless. And that's another reason I think Mayock and Gruden may fall in love with this guy and pull him at 19. They're not going to go wide receiver at 12, I don't think. But at 19, they need wide receiver help. And I think they fall in love with Michael Pittman. That's my one hot take for the draft weekend. I think Michael Pittman goes to the Raiders at 19. And if he doesn't, I think because his character's so high and he gives you wide receiver one potential, maybe the Vikings at 22 or 25. I'm just saying. That's one of my hotter takes I'm going to give you guys. I think he may end up going a lot higher into tier one wideouts with the Jeffersons and the Mims than people think.
You see the speed cuts, the hooks, the slants, the intermediate game possession receiver that is really physical after the catch and dynamic, even with the ball in his hands, despite not having that fast 40. You see what he can do in terms of when he gets the ball in the short to intermediate game and needs to create. He's got great field vision. He's willing to take guys on, break tackles. The only worry that I have with Michael Pittman is some of that vertical separation. You see that in some of his clips where he's not going to be able to burn and vertically release with straight line speed against some of these DBs. And when he gets pressed, he definitely has the physicality to stack up, but that's the area of his game that he has to get better with heading into the NFL.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, can't argue with that for sure. There's certainly a few flaws. He's got a few injury concerns, busted his shoulder in 2017 and whatnot. But again, I think if you just start to look at ceiling and how good he could be matched up and combined with the character, which I got to hear him talk down at the Senior Bowl. I mean, that lived up to the hype too. I feel a lot better about, you brought up a good point. I feel a lot better about guys that come from USC in the Pac-12 versus the defensive backs that they're playing than, again, I do against the Big 12 just because we've been burned so many times. So I think he faced more NFL competition than a guy like Mims. Not knocking Mims at all. We already talked about him, but I really think Michael Pittman, just knowing everything he brings to the table, checks all the boxes. I think he's a surprise first rounder. He's
a safe pick for an NFL team. They will be rewarded in some fashion by picking Michael Pittman. Got two positions left, Luke. Cornerback. Got to be something the Vikings address early in the draft based upon looking at the tiers of players, seeing what's out there. I have a few different options that stand out to me. Let's start with TCU's Jeff Gladney. I think he's fairly unfairly labeled as a guy that can't get into passing lanes because he doesn't have the size or the length. His arm length's in the 67th percentile when you're looking at the mock draftable spider charts, and all he does is make plays on the football. He can play in the slot, on the outside. Give me this guy in Mike Zimmer's defense. What do you think, Luke?
Oh, I love it. I love it. There's something about undersized corners that they just bring this pit bull mentality with them. And, Jason Verrett has made a living off being an undersized corner that, when healthy, one of the best corners in the entire league. He's my third ranked corner. I love this guy, outside of Okuda and CJ Henderson. His technique is not perfect yet, and that's fine, because Mike Zimmer will be able to, the first step he puts onto the field on campus, he will be able to start honing and molding him. But he's scrappy, he's tough, he's physical, probably best in a man scheme, a press man scheme, but he's got great high-end athleticism, which you love. And I think he can be one of the best cornerbacks in this entire crop. Sure. On paper, Madden creative player, Ken Law, you talked about, yeah, you want him 6'3.5", like Richard Sherman. But I'll tell you, in the last 3-4 years, some of the smaller, quicker, shiftier receivers have been some of the best receivers in the league. Talk about like Odell Beckham Jr.'s, and you could even talk about, Brandon Cooks, Stephon Diggs. Those big-bodied corners have a little bit trouble with those quicker, shiftier receivers. Verrett can match toe-to-toe, step for step in the slot with guys like that, those quicker, shiftier receivers. I love them. My third-ranked cornerback. Listen, we want to splash at pick 22. You want somebody to fall that shouldn't be there. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Gladney at 22 or 25 would make a ton of sense. And I think he would be really, really good under Mike Zimmer. Gives you a nice 1-2 punch with Hughes and Gladney for the foreseeable future. I like it.
I like the fit of Gladney better than a guy like Christian Fulton. The technique definitely needs to progress with Jeff Gladney, but that aggressiveness, the ability to play in the press man coverage scheme, the athleticism, I like his versatility. There's just I checked all the boxes that I want a defensive back for Mike Zimmer. Gladney has it, and when he gets into a developmental system, the sky is the limit. Sign me up right now. I'm all in.
Yeah, I'm all in, man. Again, I keep sitting here saying every draft hit or radio hit I do that, I want the Vikings to go offense, offense, offense. Let Zim have some fun in the later rounds and develop the Stephen Weatherlys and Jay Rucker. But Gladney is just so good, such a sure, safe pick for me under Mike Zimmer. You got to have a lot of corners in this league, man. I'm not talking about 2. You got to have 3, 4, 5 even. And Holton Hill showed a lot of promise. Chris Boyd showed a lot of promise. I'm still a big Mike Hughes guy, but add Gladney into the mix. It just relieves so much pressure all of a sudden off the secondary, and then you can go focus on offense, offense, offense. I really like Gladney. I don't mind that he's undersized. Certainly you want a 6'2" cornerback, but this guy plays with a chip on his shoulder because he's undersized and has been told his whole life that he's just not going to be good enough. So I love him. I would be fine and very, very satisfied with Gladney at pick 22 or 25.
But what if the Vikings wait, Luke? What do you think about Amik Robertson? Because this guy's my draft crush. Absolute bulldog at the nickel cornerback position in the NFL. Sign me up. He's another guy that I'm willing to wait at corner and rely on Amik Robertson as an option.
Everybody just dismissed this guy as he won't be anything more than a day 3 pick, 5th, 6th round because he's only 5'8.5". I'm not so sure he's not gone in the 3rd round anymore, because people have starting to really come along on this guy and realize when you watch the tape, this guy has so many attributes. And I think he really fits the nickel cornerback role perfectly in the NFL, which has become so valuable. But he's feisty. He's got that competitive demeanor, great anticipation, physicality, run defense you don't got to worry about. And that's important with Mike Zimmer's corners. Ball skills you don't have to worry about. Those are things you can't teach. The lack of size has never been an issue. I don't see it being an issue in the NFL. Great versatility, man, zone, press, you name it. But junkyard dog mentality. I want those guys who play with that swag, that confidence in Mike Zimmer's secondary. Certainly Gladney and Amik Robertson. You want to talk about, hitting the reset on the secondary, the cornerbacks. You had somehow Gladney at pick 25 and Amik Robertson with pick 105, your second, third round pick. I think you should be oozing with confidence and excitement on draft weekend, because those two guys, albeit they're undersized, those two guys with Mike Hughes and Holton Hill, oh my gosh, that would be such a great nickel or dime package. I really like his play style.
He can come up and jam guys at 5'8". He plays like he's 6'1", Luke. That bulldog mentality, press man guy with that size, coming into the box, just kicking people's teeth in against the run.
Dude, check out his game against Texas. Colin Johnson is one of the biggest receivers you'll find in this draft. 6'4.5", 6'5". That dude, I think Colin Johnson had to go to the dentist after, man. That dude jammed him up and down all day long in his grill, in his face, in his chest, and he looked like he was the bigger of the two. There's something about football size, football competitiveness. Amik Robertson just oozes with that. I'm excited to see where he goes. I loved him even more a month ago because I thought you could steal him in the 5th, 6th round. No way that's happening anymore. I think that's a guy that end of round 3, I think that's fine. I don't think you're reaching at all. End of round 3, Vikings have that pick 105, their second, third round pick. I'm fine with that. Circle that name and sign me up. He's great.
I have him in the mid-third round range. Some team's going to fall in love with him. They like what they see on tape.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that you can really build around if you're looking for a nickel corner that's got that killer mentality. I'm all in with him as well. If the Vikings want to wait at corner, it makes a lot of sense for them to take that route and look at a guy that would fit their defense extremely well.
Right. Yeah, I'm all in, man. I love him.
All right, I'm pulling up a mystery spider chart here for you to look at. This is one of my favorite prospects in the entire draft, Luke. Entire draft. I want this guy with Andre Patterson. Who is it? You got a guess?
That looks like, just with the specific traits or drills you're showing me, it looks like a defensive lineman, probably a defensive end. I'm gonna guess the Florida defensive end, not Jonathan Greenard, Zuniga,
Jabari Zuniga.
Dude, you talk about just raw. You want find another hunter in the 4th round, 3rd round. This guy is so explosive. Jonathan Greenard's going to get drafted before him, led the SEC in tackles for loss and sacks, looked good in the Senior Bowl. But if you're talking just more a ball of clay, a raw ball of clay to get Andre Patterson and Mike Zimmer, this guy, where do you have him projected? I think in the 4th round, you're more than happy with that, because just the skill set screams to me like a guy who's just untapped with potential.
I have him in the 3rd round. I could see a team getting really excited about the traits, and he does not look that raw on tape. Like, there's pass rushing moves in his arsenal. He's falling and he's losing his balance in this game. But I remember watching it on TV, and I put Jabari in my phone and said, I need to go back and dig into this guy. This was the game that really got me interested in Jabari Zuniga. He was disruptive. He can kick inside. He can play on the edge. He's the perfect replacement for Everson Griffin, Luke. Reminds me a lot of him with the versatility and the skills that he has. With that spider chart, the upside, I want to take a chance on him and see what Andre Patterson can do. 4th round is probably the best target, but I have him as a 3rd round talent, probably going in the 4th round.
Dude, I honestly, because either you believe in this skill set or you don't, and half the league is going to believe, and it only takes one team to fall in love. Runs a 4.64 40, 29 bench reps. You showed us the spider chart. This dude just looks like an NFL dude. He is a mauler. Injuries are going to bump him down, which means if you can finally get him healthy for 16 games, somebody's getting a steal. Injuries really bothered him quite a bit. It was a high ankle sprain. It was something that seemed like every year, and he just couldn't stay healthy in 2019. So people remember what you've done lately. Well, people don't remember a ton about him because he couldn't stay on the field. But I'm telling you, man, offensive linemen could have nightmares about this guy because he's just that good athletically. And I certainly think the long limb, athletic frame, he's chiseled up and down, 4'6", 440. He can just ravage some of these offensive linemen getting to the backfield. Maybe you're getting a discount because he couldn't stay healthy. If he's there you have a third round grade on him, I would not be shocked at all if he went in the third round. I think his potential is that good. But if you can get him in the fourth round, Rick tries to trade back a lot, get extra fourth, fifth, sixth. That's a guy, talk about a lotto ticket. That guy, you would really love to see in purple because, Everson Griffin, Ifedi, we love Ifedi, but they need more bodies at defensive end. D tackle, they at least got some guys in the rotation with Armin Watts, Jalen Holmes, Hercules Madoff. D end. Tell me if I'm wrong. They got nobody behind your Hunter and then Ifedi. There's just not much there.
It's crazy you bring up Ifedi because on the Mock Draftable website, his comp, 75% testing metric to Ifedi Adenabo.
Wow.
So you can insert him into that role as a sub-package rotational player, solid on special teams, fills that Everson Griffin role too. I'm all in on Jabari Zuniga. I want to see him with Andre Patterson.
Yeah, I am in the 1% minority who still thinks there's a chance Everson Griffin comes back in purple. But regardless of what you think with that, even if he does,
you got a plan.
You got a plan. You need to grab a guy like this, high-end potential in the third, fourth, fifth round. You got to grab a couple of these guys because they need to start developing these types of players. And you're right, man. I mean, Greenard, again, probably going to get drafted higher because he led the SEC in tackles for loss and sacks. But this guy, if you're just looking for upside, he's a creative player, like you talked about Javon Kinlaw. Injuries will push him down, but somebody's going to get great value for it. I'm glad you brought him up. I really like him.
There's so many prospects that we can bring up, but that's all we have for time today, Luke. I appreciate you stopping by, taking some time to go through these prospects. But before you go, what do you think's going to happen on Thursday night in the first round? I want your take. Who are they going with? Bold predictions. Go get your guys.
Boy, I think like every draft class, there's something goofy that really happens in the first round. Is it going to be a player slips a little bit farther, like Tua Tagovailoa? Where's he going to end up falling to? Justin Herbert maybe get drafts ahead of Tua. But I think just looking at the landscape, knowing the teams that have been mentioned in these rumors, I think you're going to see at least one draft weekend trade by the Minnesota Vikings for a specific player. If it's Anthony Harris on the way out to Cleveland and they ended up somehow packaging and getting pick 10, is it a guy like Trent Williams coming in for a second or third round pick? I think you're going to see a player for draft pick trade by the Minnesota Vikings somewhere in the mix. If I could put money in Vegas right now, I would put my pink slip down that they will not end up drafting at pick 22 and 25. One of those, if not both of them, will end up getting moved somehow.
I like that take. Trent Williams, Joe Tooney, do they make a deal for one of those guys? They've been kicking the tires the way it sounds, trying to come up with a deal. Anthony Harris would have to be traded, and you might have to settle for the value that you might not get in that deal, second round pick. But with the idea that you're going to get a solid veteran that fills a huge need, instant impact, I don't have a problem with that trade scenario. But if they do stay at 22 and 25, I like Josh Jones and Jeff Gladney as my two picks, guys that I don't feel are raw. They can come in, instant impact. They need to kill those first 5 picks. If they do stay put, which is highly unlikely at all their picks, those first 5 guys, they need to nail those and come out with contributors that can fill some holes on the roster that really need an upgrade, especially when they had some cap casualties and veteran cuts on the defense.
I mean, just to summarize what that beautiful statement that you just said, go get your guys Go get them.
You guys.
It's just draft weekend, baby. I can't believe it. Thanks for having me on, man. Love all the hard work you do. You cut up the tape. Gonna get you on the draft after the draft's concluded. We'll talk about winners, losers, and we'll talk about where all your Gophers ended up landing, like Carter Coughlin and Tyler Johnson and some other ones. Going to be really exciting, man. But thanks as always for having me on.
I'm the ghost of Minneapolis, Luke. Look at
you are. What's going on?
It got real dark. It's gonna rain now, so I'm the ghost of Minneapolis right now. We'll just embrace. Thanks for coming on, Luke. Follow Luke on Twitter at Luke_Spinman NFL. All the stuff he does with zone coverage. You can follow me on Twitter at Daniel House NFL. Like and subscribe to this channel on YouTube, Daniel House. Please do it. It's free and it helps us out. So thanks, Luke, for stopping by. It's time to unwrap some presents on Thursday. Go get your guys. Thanks for stopping by.
Love it.